The Dakota Proclamation by Meredith Quinn, Musa. Section titled, His Land, Mom's Apple Pie. There is a song in my heart. What are the words? This land is my land. Well, to the Indian, that is all it can be, a song. To live in the so-called civilized world means that identity, family background, power, and wealth are all measured by the land one owns. You can pick up pictures, or better yet, contact your local travel agent and make your reservations. You might even receive a little traveling bag that has the wording, "See America First." Travel through this great land and see what the Indian created to watch over, but could not hold, because he was not white. Visit the farming areas where you see homes, barns, equipment, trucks, cars, lands under crops, the farmyard with chickens, ducks, geese, cows, horses, pigs, sheep, children playing happily in the yard, the mother standing at the back door with her apron on. You know she has just finished cooking or canning something that will endear her loved ones around the dining room table, and clean white wash hanging on the line, blowing in the breeze. You watch for a while, for you can see security, education, taxation, a sense of belonging, and no shame, because here is the fruit of the land, the image of no need or want. Or visit the mining areas where huge machines and complex building structures enable man to draw out the riches of the land and go home to enjoy his family. Here, too, is represented prestige, power, and wealth from the land. Now, turn into the timber country. See the smoke coming from those strange cone-shaped buildings? Look at those diesel trucks thundering into the yard with logs bigger than a house. Look around. As far as your eye can see, there is timber and trees. Who was that woman that wrote, "I think that I shall never see a poem more lovelier than a tree"? Look at the snow on the mountains. From here begins your televisions, tables, chairs, floors, homes, boats, furniture, glue, clothes, books, newspapers, magazines, funny books, games, boxes, and Disneylands. No matter what is made in this world, you'll find a part of a tree in it. But trees stand on land. Look, we're coming into a city. See the new houses being built? Boy, I bet they have swimming pools. I wonder who owns the lands. Why didn't they do this before? I sure wished I'd owned this land. I would really be rich. There's a sign of some kind. Oh, it's an Indian reservation. I've never met an Indian. Let's stop so I can tell my friends that I met a real Indian. Quote, "Be careful of the roads. You'll break the car. Oh, how dirty they live. Look at those children playing with you. Dirty, unwashed, no shoes. What's the matter? Don't their parents care for them? Look, they even cook on the ground. Don't they know they can get germs? Why do they want to live like this? They don't want to help themselves. Let's go somewhere else. Maybe we can see an Indian on his horse with a bow and arrow hunting a buffalo." Close quote. If I've heard them once, I've heard the following concepts 1,000 times, but this is as far as anyone goes. The Indian himself owns land, or lives on what he believes is his land, rich in minerals, fertile soil, timber like you have never seen, and near development areas untouched. Yet there is no way he can get to it. Let me show you why we will never be a prosperous people. 3 cheers for freedom. Well, he still has his reservation. He can sit down on the ground with his and be Indian. Call your local Bureau of Indian Affairs and ask for the Johnson O'Malley Act, or sometimes called Public Law 280. Ask for the whole act, not what they want you to read. In fact, it states that any state can interfere with the Indian being Indian with no protection from the government. This land where Indian reservations are located are non-controlled by acts and statutes. Even if the Indian wanted to, he couldn't give it away. No, the Indian must wait on the reservation as these special interest groups decide which land they want next. Their method of operations is very simple. They introduce a Senate bill to Congress, which is read 3 times and transferred to the Committee of Interior and Insular Affairs, who make sure that guardianship, alienation, and severalty are not changed, and citizenship is not issued. It ensures that the Indian remains without rights and his lands are kept intact, untouched, till these same special interest groups get ready to use them. The same bill, when ready, is returned to the House or Senate, voted on, and passed. When it leaves the Interior and Insular Committee, it will always pass the Congress. Meanwhile, the Indian has lost his sovereignty, nation, lands, resources, treaty, and his identity through these acts, which an attorney would lose his license if he told the Indian what they meant. It really works. Congress may determine the rights of Indians to the occupancy of lands, and if injury occurs, the relief must be sought from Congress and not the courts. The fee to Indian lands is in the United States government, the Indians having at most only the right of occupancy based on aboriginal possession and occupancy. While the government may extinguish this right of the Indian, it should not do so without their consent or without compensating them therefor. Title 42, CJS 28, page 688. The title of the government to Indian lands, which has been designated as the naked fee, is a sovereign title, the government having no landlord from whom it holds the fee. Title 42, CJS 28, page 688. An Indian reservation is a part of the public domain, set apart for the use and occupation of the tribe or tribes of Indians. Only the United States can deprive the Indians of their rights in a reservation, and even the United States should not do so without compensating them. Under special acts of Congress, various Indian tribes have enabled to recover from the United States for the wrongful taking of their lands. Title 42, CJS 29, page 690. 18 U.S.C.A. 1152, Cauliflower versus Garland, 342, F. 2nd, 369. C.A. Mont, 1965. Sovereignty bars way of one wishing to sue Indian tribes. Cherokee Nation versus Kansas Railway, 135 U.S. 641, 34 LED 295, 10 SC period R period 96. An Indian tribe is not a sovereign nation, and the United States may exercise the power of eminent domain in its territory. U.S. versus Salamanca, D.C., New York, 27F SUPP period 541, 25 USCA 81 Note 3. This section expressly accepts from its provisions treaties therefore made. Otherwise, the United States could abolish or change a treaty without approval of the tribe with whom it was made. 42 CJS 24. The United States has power to make treaties with Indian tribes. The Indian has the rights to treat it as a nation or states in a limited sense. Dependent, it is true, but still capable of making treaties. And members of treaties were made in reference to lands, supplies, education, intercourse, and other matters. This method of dealing with the Indian tribes by treaty was abrogated, however, by the Act of March 3rd, 1871, REV period ST period 2079, 25 USCA 71, which provided that no Indian nation or tribe within the territory of the United States should be acknowledged or recognized as an independent nation, tribe, or power, with which further provided that no obligation of any treaty lawfully made and ratified with any such Indian nation or tribe prior to the date of the act should be thereby invalidated or impaired. Now that you know there is no statute for an Indian to own land as an Indian, and that according to the severalty law, even the property he buys off the reservation can be taken from him, let's see if there's a chance that he can develop the mineral resources. 42 CJS 30, page 696. A. In general. Ordinarily, a grant of land to an Indian tribe or nation for its absolute and undisturbed use and occupation carries with it the beneficial ownership of the minerals therein. Mining claims cannot be located on such land unless the Indian title is extinguished. Hence, if the United States wrongfully takes or appropriated any part of the land, the tribe is entitled to have included in its compensation for such taking a value of minerals therein. B. Leases, page 697. Mining leases on Indian tribal lands are invalid unless sanctioned by statute. Under various statutes, such leases are permitted, but they are generally subject to the approval of the Secretary of the Interior. 42 CJS 32, page 702. Cutting and sale of timber, hay, or grass. Timber may be sold under departmental regulations and subject to the approval of the Secretary of the Interior. In the absence of any provision, therefore, Indians are held to have no general right to cut timber for sale. 42 CJS 31, page 700. Ferry and water rights. An act or treaty creating a reservation may expressly or impliedly reserve to the Indians in the use of the waters on the reservation, and Congress may provide for the just and equal distribution of the waters among the Indians resident on a reservation where irrigation is necessary. Congress may also provide for the acquisition of water rights in an Indian reservation by private interests. If there are any questions left in your mind that the Indian cannot develop his lands, you are past helping and too far gone. Let's see if the poor Indian can homestead. Indian is not a race, creed, or color. 43 U.S.C. 173. All commutations of homestead entries shall be allowed after expiration of 14 months from date of settlement. 43 U.S.C. 189 states that the Indian does not have the right to 43 U.S.C. 179, but must first show the Interior Department that he has abandoned his tribal relations and wipes out 43 U.S.C. 184, which states that no color, creed, or race will keep you from homesteading. So the Indian is not a race or creed, according to United States laws. After the Indian has shown that he has abandoned his tribe, then the Secretary of the Interior will hold his title for 25 years, and then he will receive land titles. This is the same title needed for the Indian to get a certificate of citizenship. Just in case there is an Indian on land prior to July 4th, 1884, he still has to wait 25 years to get title. 43 U.S.C. 433A. Outside of being Indian, you can get preference to homestead land if you are a needy family. 43 U.S.C. 329 says that you have to be a U.S. citizen. So we now know why the Indian doesn't homestead. 40 years to try. Let's just review the conditions and what it would take if an Indian was to try and homestead. Apparently, it would take a complete lifetime just to legally do it as an Indian. First, he must be 21 years old and the head of the family. Second, he must get a certificate of tribal abandonment, 5 years. Third, he must get a certificate of eligibility. Fourth, he must get a certificate of competency. Fifth, the Secretary of the Interior holds title for 25 years. Sixth, a Senate bill presented to the Congress so that guardianship, alienation, sovereignty should be relieved, and it must pass the Congress. Seventh, then the Secretary of the Interior issues a certificate of citizenship. Eighth, then the Indian gets title to his land from homestead. This procedure could take from 40 to 50 years of an Indian lifetime just to get title to homestead land. And remember, it's the only way he can own land legally. Quinn's concept. This next page is an idea that was in booklet form. It is the last of an original 18. All of this study is lost because students and members of university groups had promised to help with the Indian problem. The booklet, in its original form, showed by year infant and general mortality rates by reservation and to population of the Indian and Indian land shrinkage. Here's a simple rule. 90% and 80% Indian bloodlines are trouble areas. 70% Indian bloodlines is an area that is set up territory to complete federal acts for termination. 30% and 40% Indian bloodlines is allotted land area, which is always trouble area. Study this idea the page affords, because there is no other one document that puts together enough information that you can combine any number of reports on the Indian problem. Quinn's concept: how to terminate Indian reservations by state, fiscal year of 1960. And then there is a data chart with historical statistics from colonial times to 1967, Series J10, Bureau of Census Advanced Reports, General Population Characteristics, University of Chicago, Professor Soltax, Department of Interior Land Management, Public Land Statistics, Table 284-85, Department of Interior, Indian Affairs Annual Report and Unpublished Data, Department of Interior Indian Affairs Statistics Concerning Indian Education, Department of Interior Indian Affairs Indian Population and Land. And I am going to include this chart as the cover for this section of the book. So I'm not going to read it. It is a chart of Alaska, Arizona, California, Colorado, Florida, Idaho, Kansas, Minnesota, Montana, Nevada, New Mexico, North Dakota, Oklahoma, Oregon, South Dakota, Utah, Washington, Wyoming, and other. And showing totals of Indian land, acres, Indian population, degree of Indian blood, vacant land in acres, students in federal school to population. So, he says, let's look at another idea. The highest mortality rates today are in the states that have 90% Indian blood. Let's put them in order and add one more thing. Let's check to see how much vacant land is in the state. Remember, this is also Indian land, but the records of who and what Indian tribes were here is in records, not open for public viewing. And the columns are the state, percent of Indian blood, and vacant land in million acres. So let's see. Alaska, 85.4% of Indian blood. Vacant land in million acres, 270,171,000. Arizona, 98.4. Vacant land in million acres, 13,136,000. California, 98.4. Vacant land in million acres, 15,764,000. Nevada, 99.1. 45,977,000 vacant land in million acres. New Mexico, 99.1. 13,300,000 vacant land in million acres. Oregon, 93.7. Vacant land in million acres, 875,758. Washington, 93.7. Vacant land in million acres, none. These are all trouble areas for the Indian. You will find sellout Indians, senators, and attorneys mixed up in Indian business in the area. All these areas have deaths in which police officers committed the act. Let's turn back to the page, Quinn's concept, and show you a formula that can be worked out, and you will be on top of Indian termination, maybe even an Indian authority. Please note that at the top of the page, you have all the needed references to put together this same type of page. Next, put together mortality rates out of U.S. Vital statistics by year, by state, and reservation if possible. Now you're ready to put a puzzle together. 1. Take the year and area that has the highest infant mortality rate. It changes from year to year. Allow from 3 to 5 years. 2. Then compare student enrollment in these areas. It will increase in enrollment, but the percentage of full bloods will decrease. 3. Next, check the population of the Indian for these years, and it will decrease, and Indian land shrinkage will begin. Remember, reservations that are named allotted disappear faster than reservations which are not allotted, because this requires termination. My birthplace is Sisseton, South Dakota, which has the finest farmland in the country. We have topsoil 25 feet thick. It rains 1 to 2 times a week, so anything grows. Yet, this reservation is the poorest in the country. The annual wage earning incomes per year is $11 per family. This is no mistake. Not even $1 a month comes from this town built for the Indian. Yet, if the Indian had the same rights as the white man there, it would be impossible for the Sioux of Sisseton, South Dakota, not to be the richest in the nation. What could cause this situation if this is Indian land? What is being done that makes the white man rich and the Indian the poorest? Let's take a look. At present, the Indian can only lease his land. Let's take a look at the lease that the government controls over Indian land. The following page is a copy of the exact lease presented to the Indian to sign, which makes him the poorest in America. The page of the lease has 6 categories of Indians that could have Indian land. It takes in all types to make sure that the government controls all the area. Let me explain what they mean. 1. This is every Indian in the country, also called guardianship, alienation, and severalty. 2. Orphaned Indians are in a lower class than non-compos mentis. 3 and 4 explains itself. 5. Indians in prisons, jails, armed forces, cities, and in towns off the reservations. 6. If one Indian disagrees, the government does not need their signature, even if 1,000 Indians own the land. Notice of intent to advertise for lease certain tracts of Indian trust lands on the Sisseton Reservation to Indian landowners and other interested parties. Under current leasing regulations, 25 CFR 131.2 and 131.7 and other parts, the superintendent is authorized in certain instances to advertise for lease individually owned trust lands to the highest satisfactory bidder and grant a lease thereon. This constitutes notice of intent to advertise Indian trust lands on the Sisseton Indian Reservation, where leases begin on the first day of October 1971, and which fall within the following categories. 1. Where the owner is non-compos mentis or not of sound mind. 2. In the case of orphaned minors. 3. On behalf of the undetermined heirs of an estate. 4. Where Indians have given the superintendent written authority to execute leases on their behalf. 5. In those cases where the whereabouts of the Indian owner is unknown. And 6. Where the heirs or devisees to individually owned land have not been able to agree upon a lease during the 3-month period immediately following the date on which a lease may be entered into. A lease agreement may be entered into 12 months prior to the beginning date of the lease. For the purpose of clarification, the 90-day period mentioned in item 6 above will end March 15th, 1971. Adult Indian owners who are sole owners of tracts of lands are invited to make a request to include their lands in the proposed advertisement if they wish to explore the rental market. The highest bid in these cases will be advertised, subject to the owner's acceptance. This notice affects only the leases beginning on October 1st, 1971, and may be disregarded if you have no leases scheduled to begin October 1st, 1971. And this is signed by the Superintendent William Strotz, it looks like, dated December 15th, 1970, Sisseton Agency, Sisseton, South Dakota. So the white man has written laws and covered them with lies. They were written to make him look godly, and the Indian ungodly. He has taken our lands wrongly and with a lie, with a complete falsehood. True, we do not believe in land ownership, but the white man has twisted it in such a way as to make it impossible to ever own land legally or to be a citizen of our own lands. But I challenge him and his God. I will even sit before him and wait to see who his God will strike dead because he took the Black Hills, the land that is considered to be the center of Dakota. For this I shall never rest, nor find a place in my heart to forgive him till the day comes when Dakota and friends can once more sit down in peace, harmony, and cook, and eat the wealth of our homes, and smoke the pipe of peace. I, Dakota, a nation, a people, a way of life, a frame of mind, known by your secret histories as Dakota, first emperor of this hemisphere, shall tear our homeland from your hands. I'm coming back for our Black Hills. We must have our secret hills, our Black Hills. We are going on a long journey. And before we can leave, our feet must be on sacred ground. The time has come to command the medicine men to light the fires for the ritual of the sacred arrow, so that all Dakota shall be in order, so that all Indian nations will be in order. True that. There are many of you, but one has joined Dakota that will make another victory again in our favor. Your book said that the Creator parted the waters. Mine says that Mother Earth shall part me from you. I shall drink the water of the lands, and my thirst will go away. You shall drink it and fall to the ground. I shall stop to eat the fruits of the land and be satisfied. You will eat this same food and become ill. I shall raise my arms to the skies, breathe the free air, and rejoice to the Creator for this great day. You shall breathe this same air and die.